Hey everyone, Canadian Sergeant Steele here, and today I want to talk to you about one of my favorite characters in 10th edition 40k, Ursula Creed. Ursula Creed, the daughter of the famous Castellan Creed who led the Cadians in the defiance of the 13th Black Crusade led by Abaddon. Trying to get out from behind her father's shadow and make her own career, we now have her as her own model, and she has her own books available too. So, with this being the 9th edition new character to the Guard, and a gorgeous model, I gotta say. Absolutely love the details on this model here. What makes Ursula Creed special for the tabletop? And why might you want to take her? So, let's talk about unit profile, as we always do in the opening statements. Once again, nothing too special. Movement 6, toughness 3, 4 up save, 4 wounds because it's a named character. They typically have more wounds. Leadership 7, standard, OC 1. Alright, so right out the gate, pretty typical named character, nothing too special. She also has a 5 up invulnerable save. So keep that in mind and just remember that once you get down to just her left and her bodyguard unit is gone. Now, let's go to War Gear, because I really want to get into tactics and strategies on this. War Gear, she has 1 ranged weapon, so that's her set of pistols, and they are called Duty and Vengeance. They have a 12-inch range, they have 4 shots, ballistic skill 3, strength 5, -2, 1 damage. She could potentially take out a Chaos Space Marine, well, should, or has a high chance of taking out a Chaos Space Marine every time she shoots. So that's pretty cool, very handy dandy to have, so just keep that in mind. A couple extra shots. Now, melee, she has a power weapon, it's pretty typical, 4 attacks though, weapon skill 3, strength 4, -2, 1 damage. Also nothing to scoff at. Not going to win you any games either, but it might get a model or 2 taken out during your play. Okay, so she's pretty straightforward, right? Nothing special about the War Gear necessarily, nothing special about the profile. So let's talk about what does make the unit special, and as always, it's the unit abilities. God, probably one of my favorite parts of 10th edition. Alright, so it's a leader unit, so as you can see here, can attach to a bodyguard unit. I have a 20-man unit of Cadian shock troops. Has voice of command, so she can issue orders. Now, in terms of custom abilities, the first one she has is Lord Castellan. So in the lore, she has taken up her father's mantle by this point, and there's a great book out there that you can read about it. I've read it, really did enjoy it, and honestly, I think it does what a good 40k book should do. It'll probably give you nightmares about the war she's fighting, so it's really good. So what's that mean with this special rule though? While this model is leading a unit, that unit can be affected by up to 2 different orders at the same time. Okay, so practicality of this. For something like Cadian shock troops, excellent, right? She can lead those and they can be affected by 2 orders. So that means you could run up and you could issue like take aim and fix bayonets, or take aim and take cover, or move and take aim, right? There's a lot of combos that you could do to give yourself more tactical flexibility with one unit. Now, I would recommend that if you're going to do that, if you're going to use her ability, Lord Castellan, then I would probably really spice that unit up and put a lot of points investment into it. In terms of, I would put a Cadian command squad with it to make sure that it can't be modified, right, with their abilities unless you want them to. Make sure you get that Master Vox in there to issue those orders at 24-inch range. I would do all those things to make sure it was the best unit you could. You may even want to min-max on your weapons a little bit, right? Where like I just have this really fun model here with a chainsword and he's got a pistol as well. You may want to go Power Fist and Plasma Pistol instead to really soup out a couple of the models in here and just make them even more deadly if you're going to have Creed in there as well, being able to make them more versatile. Pretty straightforward. The next thing that you want to look at is Tactical Genius. So once per battle round, one unit from your army within 12 inches of this model can be targeted with a stratagem for 0 command points. Now, with the current balanced data slate, the only stratagems that can be modified for their CP cost are battle tactic stratagems. So even if another unit from your... Now here's where this caveat kicks in and makes this a little bit better, even though it's restricted that way now because of the balanced data slate. Even if another unit from your army has already been targeted with that stratagem this phase, you could do the same stratagem twice. Now, this does not work on reinforcements because the unit is already destroyed and removed from the table. So you can't use it for reinforcements. You can't reinforce twice. That's not going to happen. And it's not a battle tactic stratagem, so you can't modify its CP. Here's what you can use it with in terms of getting the CP down to 0. You can do command reroll. You could use go to ground. Not bad, actually. In case you all forgot or don't use it very often, go to ground is a core rulebook stratagem, and it gives you a 6-up invulnerable save, and it gives you the benefit of cover. That's really good with take cover order. Take cover modifies your cover save, so you go from a 5 to a 4, and then you can give them go to ground, which gives them a 3-up save. And then when you add in your medic for your 6-up feel no pain, you start to get pretty resilient on any guard infantry unit, not just Krieg, but any infantry unit can start to get really, really resilient. So go to ground is not a bad thing to do 0 CP on. And the other thing is too, this is once per battle round, not during your turn. So you could use this on go to ground. And remember, this is a 12-inch range. It doesn't even have to be the unit that Ursula is attached to. It could be another unit that's nearby, right? So 12 inches away, and she could allow a unit during your opponent's turn to get go to ground for free. Not bad, in case you didn't already use the stratagem otherwise. So that's really beneficial and just something that can have a lot of flexibility. But what most people use it for, what most people will use this for, is pretty simple. And I think the most common thing is the mortar pit. Sorry, I do not have any of the new ones built and painted yet. I'm a very slow painter. But here's what I do have. I got the older models. All right. So what a lot of people do is put a mortar pit in the back. And with a master box, you could have 24-inch order range, so they could be well behind Ursula Creed back in the backfield there, heading behind some terrain. And then you could issue them take aim, and the unit you're attached to could also get issued an order, not counting the order from the command squad that's likely attached to the same shock troop squad. But on this unit, what you're going to want to do, or say the other unit, is you're going to want to shoot with your regiment or squadron unit, and then have Ursula Creed be able to give that unit Fields of Fire. Fields of Fire is a battle tactic guard stratagem that gives you an additional AP. So that means your mortars could now have armor penetration. Or that means like your field ordnance batteries or anything else that can be affected by the Fields of Fire stratagem, which is anything with squadron or regiment keywords. So it's mostly everything other than some Forge World models and your abhumans, like Ratlings and Ogrins and Bullgrids. So everything else pretty much has that, and that makes it really versatile. Something you could use pretty well. And you can use it on that unit, and then everything else gets an additional AP against the unit that unit had targeted. So, for example, this infantry squad shoots at another, like, say they shoot at Chaos Space Marines, right? Oh no, the baddies are here. They shoot at them. They've targeted them. Use Fields of Fire. And so now, when you fire your mortar team from the backfield into your Chaos Space Marines, you're going to get additional -1 AP for free. That's normally a 2 CP stratagem, and now you get it for free. Make a big difference in your games, and a lot of folks do that. It's a really great way to min-max your abilities here, especially with Ursula Creed. So just keep that in mind. And then that keeps your CP free for you to do reinforcements on a unit that gets destroyed, which, just to reiterate again, is our best stratagem in the Astra Militarum. I think I've already mentioned it, but in passing, but just to point out, Ursula Creed does get to issue 2 orders naturally. So she's a little bit more expensive than a Acadian Castellan, but gets twice as many orders. And even if you upgrade the Acadian Castellan with Grand Strategist, Ursula Creed gets the same amount of orders for less points. So what are the pros and cons here? What makes Ursula Creed kind of special or different, and when would you might want to take her, might not want to take her? This combo right here you see before you, Acadian Shock Troops, 20-man unit, special weapons, Acadian Command Squad, is exactly where I like to run her. It's exactly where I like to have her. This is my favorite combo. I've already gone over both of these other units, so you understand why I prefer them. And then Ursula Creed can also just make them better. Who I would never pair her with would be Kazarkin, because she wouldn't really do much for them. They can already issue themselves an order, and they can be affected by another order. So her leadership ability, where she allows for them to be affected by 2 orders, doesn't help. They can already be affected by 2 orders, their own and something else. I don't interpret that to mean they can be affected by 3 orders. I don't believe that was the intent, and I don't believe rules is written that's how that works. So I wouldn't pair them with Kazarkins. Although, narratively, that's really cool, but not mechanically the best way to run Ursula Creed. So I think she's best at Acadian Shock Troops unit with Acadian Command Squad. Then, in terms of gameplay, which you got to keep in mind too, I prefer Acadian Castellans most of the time. I just don't like to run named characters because I like to run my own narrative. If I bring a named character, that means I'm fighting their battles, right? And that's fine. I love narrative battles too that are historical reenactments of things. I actually hope to play games where I reenact the book, the first book about her. It was really great, and those battles would just be phenomenal. I'd love to build the team that she had and went in and did the special mission. It'd be really cool. But most of the time I take the Castellans, and the other thing that you lose when you don't take the Acadian Castellans as compared to Ursula Creed is you lose your ability to fall back and shoot, and you lose sustained hits 1. I really like the ability to fall back and shoot, especially for my forward moving infantry units. If I get charged, remember, we're mostly good at shooting. We're not necessarily good at combat, and I think it's more beneficial to be able to fall back and do what we do best. And the Acadian Castellan does that, but Ursula Creed does not. So I think she's a better midfielder and backfielder in terms of commander and where you would position her strategically to be most effective. Now, you could run her front line, and that's fine, but just recognize that she's not going to be as flexible once she gets stuck into melee with your opponents. So the other thing that I want to keep in mind with this is I do, running the mortar teams with her is great. Have them in the back. Also, running artillery with her is fantastic and a great way to allow her to issue a unit to the order she's with and an order to something else. And that's really awesome. Or for the Acadian Command Squad, issue the order back and her stay up here in the front. Also really awesome. So really, she's just kind of a different version of your Acadian Castellan. There's not much else to her, right? I know she has 2 completely different abilities, right? That you guys are going to crucify me in the comments here. She has 2 completely different abilities and so forth. But in terms of like order functionality and which one should I take, it just depends on how you're wanting to run your army and your overall strategy. As always. You got to think about that. Don't just think that units are an auto included and you're always going to run the same things. There are good reasons to run Ursula Creed. The other thing that she can do is with the 2 orders, it makes her really good to work with, your sentinels, both armored and scout sentinels, since they have their regiment keyword and get orders from her, especially with the command squad nearby. So you have 3 orders you can dish out. You can do 1 to her own unit and 1 to each of those sentinel units that are also forward of her. So it's a really great way to get an extra couple orders out, and to then, once again, use Fields of Fire to get the additional AP since sentinels have the regiment keyword, and they can be, and squadron, actually both, you can be impacted by that. So they get your scout sentinels move up, they get your initial shots, they get daring recon, so you get reroll once to hit, and then you use Ursula Creed to get a free Fields of Fire, and then you get -1 AP against the unit that was the target of the scout sentinels for the rest of that shooting phase. Not bad. That's where Ursula Creed comes in, and then with the ability to also be able to go to ground for free, that's a really great way to run her as a resiliency buffer, right? You just stick her in there, and she can, when you need to, on a whim, be able to make your units a little tougher to be able to shake off the battlefield. Remember, every pip of the dice matters. And her being able to just for free give your units cover, even though they might be sitting in the middle of the battlefield, is just a really great buff to be able to have in your back pocket during certain matchups. With that, I wouldn't really recommend that with like infantry squads, right? Infantry squads, if they are on an objective, get cover. So go to ground with Creed with an infantry squad. It really isn't necessarily the way to go in terms of your tactics. I would mostly do it with your Acadian shock troops. So that's the kind of combo I would recommend there. But Fields of Fire still works as well, even if you're having her run around with infantry squads. So something really cool that you can do there, and just something to keep in mind. That's also all 3 units that she can pair with: infantry squad, shock troops, and Kazarkin. Like I said, I don't really recommend the Kazarkin because then you use the ability to be affected by 2 orders. So she's really best with infantry squads and Canadian shock troops, and probably with a command squad as well to give them a little more resiliency. That's it. That's it for Ursula Creed. She's rather straightforward. I don't think there's anything too complex about her. I do think she's a fun model to paint. She was a lot of fun hobbying. She's a great character to run on the battlefield and can do cool things for your army. So try her out. Get her, paint her up. I've also seen some amazing conversions. I get not everybody likes the kind of older look, right? But I really like that they physically made her look like her dad. And that's pretty cool. She's got the same kind of facial structure and everything. So just a neat model, but I've seen amazing kit bashes on this. I've even seen like the rebreather masks on her as well. And just all kinds of neat little things that you can do to customize the character for your army and your narrative. What I do wish we had, just as a point I'm going to lament narratively, is in the books, she had power armor, which was really cool. And I wish they would give us an alternate version of Ursula Creed in power armor. I'd have a lot of fun with that. But, oh well. Alas, we do not have that. All right, that's it for today. So I hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope that you consider using Ursula Creed and having fun with her. So, as always, have fun wargaming. And remember, Cadia stands.